Okay, guys, good morning from the UK. Today we're going to look at Bitcoin. What the hell is going on with the market? Are we going up? Are we going down? Honestly, it's anybody's guess. Every time people are like, "Wow, that's it, they were a breakout." We seem to dump back down. Every time we're dumping down, it's like, "Oh, we're going to nothing." It's like, "Ah, no, we have a pullback and we kind of come back to a parity, and we seem to be just trading sideways for the moment in time and have been for quite some time. This market is different from any other market I've been involved in. This will be my third cycle now, with Bitcoin having joined crypto in around 2016, 2017. I recall Bitcoin kind of being in the 1.5 to 2K mark when I first joined. So yeah, probably around May of 2017. If we look at CoinMarketCap here, tells us roughly when I kind of joined, which does align with my memory, albeit it's not the greatest these days, getting older and all that jazz. But we've got lined up here is a kind of a few different materials that I'll go across in terms of the web pages here, as well as me applying essentially my own experience in the crypto markets and cycles since around 2016 when Bitcoin was in around that 1500 2k mark, um, and talking a little bit about what my opinion is in terms of where we're going on the market. Of course, it's always just my own speculation. It's not financial advice. It can't be, because nobody can, and anybody who tells you that they know with 100% certain what's happening is a liar. You will find, and every single influencers, on every single market analyst, on every single kind of, kind of mind thought leader, that they will get probably as many wrong as they get right. What I would like to say is that I've got a lot more right than I've got wrong to this point, but that's by the by. I'm going to talk a little bit about what I look at to kind of make some predictions and inform my own decisions around what I do. But also, more importantly, what can we look at here to kind of give us any indication of whether we're up and down? I always like to start by looking at the markets day by day. I literally check the markets every day I wake up. Like, it doesn't often inform what I do on a day to day. I am not typically a day to day trader. I don't think these markets are made for day to day trading, unless you're kind of using tools of like MEV, like bots, like you're trying to scrimp, your arbitraging, or whatever it may be. Day to day trading is not for the average person. And unless you are somebody who is kind of involved in that, it's more a case of you should be checking your portfolios day to day. You should be checking the markets. You should be keeping up to date day to day, but necessarily moving things, especially with regards to Bitcoin, I would say not. Now, so we're currently kind of at 97 and a half, 97.25, if you like, $97,250 on Bitcoin. We're still kind of in and around what was the top being like 109k according to CMC here. 10% down on that all-time high there. In terms of price performance over the last 24, we're looking at the high end. If we look at like the last month, we're more slightly towards the lower, which being the 30-day move-in would be 91,000 and the high 107. So we could say that we're kind of below the midpoint of what that 30-day moving average is, which could give an indication that there's a little bit more upside to come on the Bitcoin side, or in the shorter term. We could be looking at that, albeit you can't use this as an indicator in isolation, and I do not particularly enjoy technical analysis. It's not something that I really thoroughly believe in as an indicator and a predictor. I much prefer fundamental analysis with everything, but fundamental analysis for Bitcoin, it speaks for itself. It's done to death. So we can look a little bit more at maybe some of the TA stuff, and it gives you a general sense. I wouldn't use it as like to hang my hat on, but I think amongst the other kind of a number of other a number of other kind of indicators, you can use it to give you an idea of where we might be and where we might go. But then you also have to zoom out further, and obviously you also need to always know about where we are on a kind of like wider scale. But we're going to start with maybe some of the more day-to-day last sort of week or so. What's going on in the news? The news can have an impact on where you go within 24, 48, sort of even a week period. But beyond that, generally speaking, I don't think the news has a big impact whatsoever. But let's have a look at the news. just talking about a Bitcoin bounce back on CNBC, which is less of a crypto hardcore public media outlet, but generally speaking, it's just giving some positive sentiment. Obviously, we had the whole thing with Solana and that kind of getting hit a little bit. Also, bad news like that can impact, the market in general. But Bitcoin is super resilient. We've seen that over a decade now. Coinbase getting hit as well. So what else is it? Just yeah, not much kind of coming in out in terms of the news today in particular. Again, we'll talk about the US. The US being obviously a big market leader in terms of financial markets, as we know. Nothing much coming out today either in general around the news that's going to have like a major impact per se on Bitcoin. So let's actually come out and look at some news a little bit wider. I'll come back to the kind of the chart here, which is Chris Bernisk is the one of the I believe he's one of the co-founders of XRP, but by the by, it's actually just a tweet I picked up because I just wanted to grab an image here of the market of Bitcoin's movement. But coming back to the media really quickly, wider, we still have this idea that and there's no real evidence of this per se, but we all know that President Trump is, let's say, can be volatile to say the least. I think it's fair to say, even if you're a supporter or not, he is aggressive in what he does. And generally speaking, there is a sentiment that he wants to abolish capital gains tax on Bitcoin. Whether that's actually, going to be possible or not is something else. But obviously, if that was to happen on a more medium to longer term for Bitcoin and crypto markets in general, it would be exceptionally bullish, obviously, because the unfound kind of capital that would flow into it, therefore, if there's nothing that you need to pay on gains, would be unbelievable. It'd be seismic. And I think that kind of was tweeted out, speculated upon as soon as he came into office. This post claims that he's informed his advisors of his intention to eliminate all capital gains on Bitcoin and stocks, which is obviously a wider thing, which is also crazy. But nothing. We can't look at this as anything in terms of immediacy. And then we also do have this from Eric Trump, is President Trump's son, on a more medium to longer term basis as well, that he has teased the idea of zero crypto tax policy. It's basically, he's arguing that it'd encourage innovation and investment and position US as a global leader in crypto space. And I think that there's definitely an argument that what he's saying there is 100% true. But I'm sure that there are a huge amount of impacts on the negative that would need to be assessed in terms of doing something like that. So that's news. Medium term news just generally tipping towards the positive, despite all of the the bullshit that's gone on with Libra coin and some of the meme coin space that continues to taint the waters, muddy the waters. So the general sentiment, certainly from the US news stance, is positive. I think as well, there's been some positive news coming out. Bitcoin policy. I think that around China and Bitcoin as well. Generally speaking, they are illegal in China. Obviously, China being I believe the most popular, it's got the largest population in the world, probably either China or India. With it being banned in China currently, that's a huge portion of a potential market that is untapped. However, there has been news recently coming out that China is looking to shift its stance on crypto. Contrary to here, it is under, it is essentially under review, from my understanding, or that there is a general mindset that China is reconsidering its stance on Bitcoin in particular. So if that does happen, obviously we could potentially expect some huge positive movement in the medium term. But again, we can't use this on a day-to-day kind of assessment. It's just things that can inform the context of where we are in terms of our positions with Bitcoin and our opinions, right? So that's news. Let's come out and have a little bit more of a look at some of the kind of typical kind of market things that we can use. I've pulled this out as an image just to make it a little bit easier for us to have a look at. This is something that I've always used, which is what they call a Wall Street cheat sheet, and it's a general kind of infographic that we might use to consider where we are at in terms of the market. Now, Bitcoin is, in many ways, it's decoupled from the rest of the crypto market. You know, everyone's talked a lot about altcoins not moving and the rest of the market, but you know, for Bitcoin, you could argue that that's already kind of moved. And if we use the cheat sheet here, and we put that next to where Bitcoin is in terms of its general movement here, we can actually perhaps, you know, build a bit of a picture of where we're at in terms of these cycles. So if we consider that, obviously, let's say the 2018 cycle here, you know, back here we might have been in the hope phase, and then we get to the optimism, belief, thrill, euphoria, complacency. It's almost following by the by here. Look, I mean, euphoria at the top there, and then complacency here, and then down anxiety, and then all the way back down. We're in depression phase, and we come through to the next cycle, which was the 2021 cycle. And we can see, you could just use this as a general guide, and frankly, it follows it pretty closely. I mean, you can zoom into some of this and really kind of marry it up. But if I look at myself and the success that I've generally had in crypto markets, honestly, you can use this cheat sheet for a really good idea on a wider scale. It's not necessarily going to massively impact you in terms of your day-to-day positions, and if you're looking to kind of get trading day-to-day, but on a medium or long term, this can be a really useful tool. Now, if we look at the 2021 cycle, we could say, well, you know, again, we're in the hope here, and then we've got the optimism, belief, and then up to the thrill, and then back down to euphoria, and then coming into the complacency phase, which, you know, it's a kind of a double top again, and double tops are, you know, again, something that I talked a lot about. We actually almost had a double bull through this cycle, really unheard of, really. And it depends on how you want to analyze the market, but you could talk about it as a double bull there because of, well, there was a number of things that went on and around that, not least DeFi summer. But let's use this particular market cycle. So I guess the really interesting thing with Bitcoin is that often we will look at the previous top, like the cycle of the previous top of the cycle before as the bottom for the new cycle, meaning that in and around here, for example, we talk about it being 20k, 19k as the top for 2018, and then the bottom here of the next cycle is, well, 16, 17, but you can see there is a parity. It does kind of just across, and the previous, the new top, or the top of the previous cycle in 2021, I would hazard a guess at wherever we end here as being probably somewhere towards the bottom of this cycle, meaning that when we have, if this is the bull, or we're currently going to have the bull, the new bottom will probably be in and around, usually just below the previous top. So probably I would guess in a range of about 50 to 55k as the new bottom for Bitcoin following this market cycle. Now, okay, I'm looking at previous, and you're probably thinking, well, that's not going to tell me about what the hell's going on in the market right now. But you know, what we know about, well, just general life is that, you know, history will not always repeat, but it usually rhymes. And generally speaking, with crypto and a lot of capital markets, it's a true statement to follow by. So let's have a look at this cycle. It's a really interesting one. But if we consider that the start of the cycle for here, in and around the depression phase, is at the low, right? It is in around the, you know, the previous top there of about 16, 17k, down here somewhere. And then we look at where we've moved since that point in time. So if we're there, i.e. on, you know, in and around early 2022, this is where we are. Then the top, you could say, is the 110, which you could say is euphoria. The interesting thing, though, is that if we look at how the multiplier of the top applies to previous cycles, we have not really even doubled from the previous top of around 64. The top there is 111. Usually we get like a 3 or 4x minimum. And there are infographics that will show you this, like how much Bitcoin has kind of doubled in each cycle. And generally speaking, I don't think that euphoria has been felt. I'm in the trenches day to day, speaking with a number of people in and around crypto, market makers, VCs, community members, day to day traders, project founders, you name it. There's been no euphoria yet. Now, I think, if people are holding Bitcoin, most of them would be happy with where it's gone. I mean, you can't grumble too much from if you were buying at these levels to there because you'd have 4 5x. But with, crypto markets typically giving 100x's to many people, printing overnight millionaires non-stop, I don't think that we've really seen that happen. So, where could we be on this market cycle? My guess, and it is a guess, my estimate based on all of my kind of experience using the tools, and I'm going to go through some more here. I personally believe we're probably in the optimism or maybe even the belief, or around here being the optimism. And I still think that we've got some way to go. My guess would be that we're going up to somewhere between a 2 and 250 region. Which would be more for the euphoria when I think about what we generally know. But when we look at kind of the market and the cycles, being that the previous top here is the bottom there, we've kind of come back up to what was the previous top, which you would expect would indicate that we're probably in and around the kind of the hope and the optimism phase. So where are we there? For Bitcoin, that could mean that we're in a belief. People do, and I think if you get the general sentiment, people do generally believe that Bitcoin is approaching a bull market. Wouldn't necessarily people feel like that we're in, that we're in euphoria mode. And I think in terms of opportunity, I'd still say that we're probably on the way up here in the blue. And in terms of the point of maximum opportunity, which is always in these down phases here, that's when I do the majority of my buying. After a top and we jump down, that's where I buy in. And I know I've got to sit on that for 3, 4, 5 years or whatever it is until the next market comes around. I'm in no rush, and nor should you be. You should be looking at this on a wider scale, generally speaking. To kind of obviously optimize the opportunities. So this is a really useful tool. We can kind of map it. I would generally say that my belief is that we are in this sort of optimism belief zone. But we can also look at a number of different other indicators. There are different infographics that will kind of indicate where we are at in terms of Bitcoin and so on. This generally is an infographic that will show you the Elliot waves. These are typically like Elliot waves and how you can look and apply that. For those of you that are interested, you can read a lot about Elliot waves. Investopedia has stuff here, for example. It's essentially technical analysis developed by this gentleman here, Ralph Elliot. He observes recurring fractal wave patterns identified in stock price movements and consumer behavior. Investors who profit from a market trend are described as riding the wave, and that's where it comes from. It's a technical theory analysis that attributes wave-like patterns identified at various scales to trade psychology and investor sentiment. So we talk about technical analysis aligning to something like the Wall Street cheat sheet, for example. You can use these two things, but generally speaking, I think Elliott waves, for me, it's not something that I would use. It might be somebody who's perhaps trained massively in trading and whatever. You don't need to use this in order to be like an expert in knowing what to do to make good decisions around Bitcoin and holdings and stuff. But it is there for you to take a look at if you're interested in it. Maybe one day in the future I will do a full, thorough kind of analysis on Elliott waves. I do have an understanding, but I just don't feel like for this video it's necessarily something that we want to get into too much depth about. But it's there as a tool that can inform our decisions about where we are at in the market, and it does provide a bit of a shorter term view. So Elliott waves are there. And the other thing, again, which will give us a wider market kind of understanding is this thing called the Benner cycle, which has been widely acknowledged as actually scarily close to, what happens in terms of economic cycles. Now, I'm not going to go all the way through the history of time, you can do this. You could literally like have a Google around, and you can backtrack this kind of the Benner cycle, if you like, and where things happen. I'll just give you one good example for everyone to look at, is that when we think about the world wars, they kind of align quite interestingly to times of like hardship down in and around here. We had the Great Depression, for example, post World War II, from around like the 1950s in America, and look at where we land there. It's quite scary. And again, it's we had like the major stock market crash, I think in around 2009, 10, 11 area. So again, aligns quite nicely. If we look at, I'm just being really broad stroke here, guys, but there is a lot to be said. If we look at it in terms of crypto again and Bitcoin, what's kind of weird and scary is, and I just use Bitcoin here. I mean, you can do this on a wider market sentiment, but if we just use Bitcoin here, let's try and zoom in a little. Well, try and zoom in a little bit, but then I'll just talk you through it because of how my screen's showing. But if we use 2018 here as the previous high, and we can kind of look that 2018, well, 2018 was the top, and yeah, we came back down for 2019. But generally speaking, this is something that was written in 1875, by the way, guys, but it's not far off. I mean, it's saying in and around 2018, where we had this major top there, we're actually there, for Bitcoin too. And it's scary. The next cycle in and around 2021, again, we kind of have a little bit of a pattern. It's not perfect by any stretch, but there is kind of an alignment that when we look at this cycle, the B lines here is years of good times, high prices, and time to sell stocks and values of all kinds. Well, 2016 being back there, 2019 being, like, as we know, up there, and then if we look at 2021, we're about here, because by the time 2023 comes, when we are in the peak downtime, and as we know from the Wall Street cheat sheet, if we bring that back up a second, 2023 is down here for us in the depression area, because it's the lowest point in time. Well, if we look at 2023, we are years of hard times, low prices, and this is a good time to accumulate. It's not the time to be selling, it's the time to be buying. And everyone that were buying Bitcoin in 2023, in and around the bottom price of 17 from the previous high, well, they'd be sitting pretty right now. So this is some scary parallels. It's not perfect to the year, but when you think this was done in 1875, and this gentleman, Mr. Benner, predicted these booms and busts through market cycles, he is scarily pretty close. And also, if we therefore take the current year and we look at the current cycles, where are we? All right, well, if 2023 is this again, going back to here, we are in the depression in 2023, and it's here, right? If we're there, then we look at the Benner and we go, okay, that's where we are. Not only does the Wall Street cheat sheet say that we are in the depression phase in terms of the psychology of the market cycle, and this is the time in 2023 that Mr. Benner is saying from 1875, this is a good time to buy stocks, where I'm circling. You can't really see, can you? But if I just zoom in a little bit here, and if you look at the 2023, which is just by my head here, is saying this is the years of hard times, and it's time to buy stocks and shares, which is the bottom line, and it's kind of like the C line. And then you can see the years, and it's 2023. It says this is a good time to buy stocks and shares. So we look at this, the Wall Street cheat sheet, and we look at the 2023 line there. It aligns. On the way back up, then we are in 2026 again on this cycle. At the middle line, on the B line, is saying this is a good time to sell stocks and values of all kinds. So when we think about the fact that on the Wall Street cheat sheet, we are, in my argument, probably on the way up in the optimism or the belief area, And then we take Benner's cycle here, and he's also predicting that we're on the way back up towards the B line, which he's saying at the peak time of 2026 would be a good time to sell stocks and values of all kinds. We're on the way up with Bitcoin. Now, do I think we're at the top with the Bitcoin at that perfect time? No, I personally don't. But what's really fascinating is that Benner's kind of cycle here is also saying we're kind of on the way up. Is it most optimal? Not necessarily, but is it a smart time to maybe sell? Well, if you were buying at 16, 17k Bitcoin, maybe it is at 100k. So, he then says 2026, right, is going to be a good year to be selling, making some money, and then by 2032 again, back to the C line down. This is where we are, in bad times, and everyone should be accumulating again. So when we think about Bitcoin, I would suggest, this is my belief, that we are on the way up to the B line, because 2026 here, right? We're in 2025, obviously. By 2026, Benner is predicting that we're going to be at a time to sell. We look at the Wall Street cheat sheet, and my analysis and belief is that we're in optimism and belief. Well, by 2026, throughout this year of 2025, I think we're going to be moving up towards that euphoria phase, right? Like I say, again, that 200 to 250k mark is my personal prediction. It all aligns to these wider kind of market, cheat sheets and cycles and historical kind of data that we have to go by. So this is where I'm sat. I still think we have another leg up on Bitcoin. In the short term, in the day-to-day, maybe not today, maybe not next month. I don't necessarily. I think we may go sideways a bit more. We're at a really weird inflection point because of what's been going on with some really bad news lately, and meme coins sapping a lot of attention as well. But the Benner cycle, the Wall Street cheat sheets, there's a load of other infographics as well that we can use, all point towards the fact that we're on the way up with Bitcoin, not that we're necessarily at the top. If we look at gold too, you can kind of apply a lot of the same logic in terms of the gold and how gold has moved as well. Again, in terms of the Benner cycle as well and the Wall Street cheat sheet, again, you can apply a lot of the same infographics here, a lot of the same indicators that marry up with one another. So, in the short term, who knows? The market is still quite fragile and sensitive with everything that's going on with, like the meme coin mania, with the scamming and the rug pulls, with generally retail becoming more educated, retail being just the average person around the fact that actually, the way that previous cycles investment patterns worked was that they were used as exit liquidity and so on. There's a lot of like little micro factors which are impacting short term, but long term, Bitcoin as an asset, as we know, has been really robust, really strong, and that's for a number of reasons that this video is not about, and we can talk about in other videos for those of you that don't already know. But what we're trying to achieve in this video, are we going up or we're going down? Short to medium term, I don't necessarily think we've got any amazing indicators. I think we're very much kind of at the mercy of news and little kind of shifts in inflows and outflows politically and wider capital markets and so on. Medium to longer term, and when I talk about this in terms of my timelines, I'm talking 0 to 3 months as a short, 3 to 6 as say a medium, and then 6 to 12 as a long. Just for the purpose of this video, not necessarily in general. You talk more about 4 or 5 year cycles, but for my use of the vernacular here, those three things I would suggest are medium, short term, probably just going sideways a little bit longer. Medium term, I think, again, we're going to start to see some positive movement. And then long term, the 6 to the 12 month mark, approaching that 2026 phase, I think that we see Bitcoin start to move up to that euphoric phase. I'll continue to do videos on Bitcoin. This is a little bit more of a general overview than maybe looking at the specific day-to-days. I think we're reaching a really interesting inflection points in and around February and March, which historically has meant a lot of movement for Bitcoin one way or the other. and we can do a little bit more analysis on how Bitcoin has moved month to month as well. So we'll dive a bit deeper into day-to-day and month-to-month Bitcoin movements and any patterns that we might be able to find in some future videos, which I will do in the next few weeks. But this being the overview video, I think we're still really well positioned for Bitcoin. I think everyone should, we've got good reason to be bullish. We know that there's a huge amount of capital still flowing into Bitcoin for a huge number of reasons. I mean, you know, even if you look at this from 2024, this infographic here, if you can see it, I'll just pull it out to make it wider for everyone. You know, this has changed since this point. This is 2024, but, you know, we can see, I think gold's actually more like 18, 19 trillion market cap. Bitcoin's now 2 trillion or just under 2 trillion market cap. And Bitcoin is now actually 5th or 6th in its position here. So we can think about, my general belief, Bitcoin is going to flip gold eventually because it's just got too much going for it to not. I can do a gold versus Bitcoin kind of analysis as well. Well, gold's expensive to move. You know, Bitcoin is much cheaper. You know, gold is not got a huge use case. Bitcoin does. Every single fund and asset manager in the world is starting to acquire parts of Bitcoin. Even countries are acquiring Bitcoin as Federal Reserve. It's still actually really decentralized and so on. There's a host of different reasons. But you know, Bitcoin still has a huge amount of upside and growth, and I think the medium to long term is still looking positive for Bitcoin, even if even if we're just bouncing a bit in the short term. And that's it, really, guys. That's all I wanted to do for today's video. You know, please do hit like and subscribe. It lets me know if people like these videos. Leave a comment about what you did or didn't like, what you want to see more of, and like I say, you know, hoping to kind of do another one of these videos soon. Cheers, guys. Take it easy and peace.